In this unit where we explore the types of work cells do, it is also important to recognize the kinds of energy that are involved every time cells are performing their activities, and what are the changes that take place whenever energy is used to do work by the cell. One of the types of energy that is going to be involved in cellular work is going to be potential energy. And most of you recognize that potential energy is the energy that an object has even when it's resting. So all matter has an inherent amount of energy. For cells, the most important form of potential energy is going to be the energy that is stored in the chemical bonds of the molecule cells can use as a source of fuel. So quickly, you may think about glucose, which is a monosaccharide. You can think also about molecules like lipids, which can be used for storing energy. And so what happens with these molecules is that they do have the potential for doing work, but that energy is not going to be unleashed until the cells break those bonds and use that energy for whatever specific purpose they may need energy for. Another type of energy that is going to be present when cells are working is going to be kinetic energy. And kinetic energy, most people recognize as energy associated with the motion of an object. Matter that is in movement is going to be displaying and demonstrating kinetic energy. And for the cell, and in this unit of cellular work, there are two important forms of kinetic energy we're going to be seeing. One is going to be energy in the form of light. As you know, light travels through space. There's also going to be energy like heat. Heat is going to be one of those forms of energy that are released whenever cells are working. We may also make reference to what happens internally in a cell, or what happens with an organism when they are trying to move. So the cell has to move inside materials, move vesicles, like transport vesicles from one place to another, or an organism needs to move from one place to another as they are seeking shelter, maybe running away from danger, or looking for food. So we can also hear the movement done inside of the cell and also of an organism from one place to another. Whenever cells are using energy, they're going to be subject to two laws of thermodynamics. This is something that comes from the realm of physics. Physics is going to be primarily responsible for looking at energy transformations, and from them we can borrow the first two laws of thermodynamics. One is going to be the law of energy conservation, also known as the first law of thermodynamics. It simply states that energy cannot be created or cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. And so when organisms, for example, are growing, when a plant is growing and a fruit is getting larger, it is really not making more energy. It is simply taking energy from one place or one source and storing it in another. To be more specific, a plant will be taking energy from the sun using a process known as photosynthesis, and then using the products of photosynthesis like sugars to store in the fruit, which is going to be getting larger. So there's no way in the universe that energy can be created. Energy cannot be destroyed. And so what happens when you take that delicious fruit I'm making reference to in this illustration and you consume it? Well, you are not going to be destroying the energy in the fruit you have consumed. As you go through the process of digestion and cellular respiration, the energy in that fruit is going to be in part in products that are going to be expelled from your body. Let's talk about wastes, for example. There's also going to be energy left in the CO2 molecules we're going to be exhaling every time you breathe out. There's also going to be energy in the form of heat that, at least for a short amount of time, stays in your body, helping you maintain a comfortable body temperature for all of your metabolic reactions. The second law of thermodynamics comes as a result of the first one. It is also known as the law of entropy, and it says that whenever transformations of energy are taking place, those transformations are going to leave energy. Remember, it's not destroyed It's going to be in the same amount, but in a state that is going to be less organized and less likely that an organism will be able to use it. To be more concrete, let me take a look with you at two examples. One that maybe you're familiar with because you drive a car or you're riding a car to school. And so when you think about a molecule like gasoline, gasoline is going to have bonds between carbons and hydrogens that can be broken, and when that energy is released through the process of combustion inside of an engine, some of this energy is going to be leaving the car in the form of heat over to the surrounding air. Maybe some of that heat goes also into the cabin to keep the passengers inside of the car nice and warm and happy. Yeah, that was not a very nice drawing of a happy face. I think I'm going to remove it. Don't laugh. Then what happens to the additional energy that was used during the process of combustion? Some of it is going to be stored in molecules like carbon dioxide. There's also going to be some energy left in water. But when you think about, well, how much energy is there in the carbon dioxide or the water? Not enough. We don't know of an engine that runs on carbon dioxide or water, even though those molecules do have a small amount of energy. It's just not enough to really get the type of combustion that will make an engine produce the movement or lead to the movement of the wheels you need for one car to go from one place to another. A similar situation happens with the food we eat. As I mentioned just a moment ago, the food we consume, take a look, for example, at a molecule like glucose. In combination with oxygen, these two can go through the process of cellular respiration. We also end up releasing heat as a byproduct from the work of cellular respiration. And what we're doing is a transformation, first law of thermodynamics, taking the energy from food and through a series of chemical reactions, storing that energy into this wonderful molecule of ATP. So whenever we're talking about cells making ATP, they are not making energy. It is simply energy transformations. It's energy that used to be stored in glucose or other fuel molecules cells can use, and now it's in a state your cells can use it. ATP, as many of you know it, is often described as the currency of the cell because whenever a cell needs to do anything, it is going to be precisely ATP, what it will be using. In terms of disorder, some of the energy that is left as heat is going to leave our bodies. It's going to be unusable to us again. And some of the energy is also going to be left in molecules like water and carbon dioxide. There's some energy there, but as I said before, not enough to power activities cells need to perform. And so if you look at a question like, why do you get hot when you work out? If somebody said, well, you're producing heat, you know right away from this conversation that that is not the case because energy cannot be produced. You cannot produce heat. But what happens is most likely the answer is going to be D. As the energy in food is converted to the energy of movement, some of the original energy in the food is going to be converted to heat. And so all of the other choices, you can examine them, you can explore them, and they are not going to be the correct answer. Let's take a look at energy reactions that take place inside of cells from the point of view of energy. Cells can perform endergonic reactions when there is an energy input needed that will help transform reactants that have a low amount of potential energy into products that are going to have a higher amount of potential energy. So if you look at this graph over here, this axis, the vertical axis, is going to be showing the, let's see if I can go back to do my annotations. Yes, the vertical axis is going to be showing the energy of the reactants and of the products. Potential energy. And what can we do to take reactants that have a lower amount of potential energy into products that have a higher amount of potential energy? So we're talking about this difference here, this input of energy. Where can it come from? And one of the answers is going to be, in the case of plants, light, photosynthesis. The sun would be that source of energy. So when we explore at photosynthesis, why can we say that photosynthesis is an endergonic reaction, something that requires an energy input? We know sun is needed, but where's the proof in terms of reactants and products? Let's explore that for a moment. The reactants for photosynthesis are going to be two very basic molecules. It's going to be 6 molecules of CO2 and 6 molecules of water. When you think about how much energy is there in CO2 and how much energy in water, well, we just mentioned a moment ago, there's some energy, but not enough to power the work cells do. These two molecules, with the help of sunlight, are going to be converted into one high energy molecule of glucose, C6H12O6, and also 6 molecules of oxygen are going to be released. The oxygen to the plant is a byproduct, but to us is exactly what we need to be able to extract the most energy from a molecule of glucose. And so when you think about low energy reactants, high energy products, how did the plant make up for this difference? Well, where did they get this energy input? And now you know the answer is going to be sunlight. Photosynthesis is going to be a topic we explore in greater detail eventually in this unit. Whenever you hear the word biosynthesis, bio simply means life. Synthesis means making or putting together. And so how is life put together? Life is put together by connecting amino acids to make proteins, by connecting monosaccharides to make polysaccharides. And so whenever you're thinking about biosynthesis, think about making bonds, making new covalent bonds. The process of making bonds in biology requires an energy input. And so where does an athlete get the energy to make bigger muscles, to increase the amount of protein inside of the muscle cells so those muscles can be, contracting with greater strength, leading to a higher performance from the athlete? Well, the energy to make those bigger muscles is going to come from other protein molecules that athlete is going to be consuming. The other form of reaction cells can perform and also deals with energy is going to be an exergonic reaction. In an exergonic reaction, energy is going to be released. There is going to be overall an energy output as you go from reactants that have a higher amount of potential energy to products that have a lower amount of potential energy. And so when you look at this decrease in energy from reactants to products, that is going to be exactly the energy output. What kinds of work cells do that are going to be exergonic reactions? The classic example is going to be cellular respiration. How can we say that cellular respiration begins with high energy reactants? Well, let's take a look at the equation. Cellular respiration is going to be the opposite of photosynthesis. Cell respiration begins with one high energy reactant, which is glucose, C6H12O6. I think I can do a little bit better with this 12 over here. I'll try again. It's a little bit better. C6H12O6. And combined with 6 molecules of oxygen is going to react to combine, it's going to react to produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water. So if you look at this overall equation, the summary equation for cellular respiration, you're going to see right away that this is like the one for photosynthesis, except that things have been flipped. The reactants now used to be the products in photosynthesis. If I can go there quickly, look, what do we have here in the products? Glucose and oxygen. What do we have in cellular respiration as the reactants? We have glucose and oxygen. And these two products from cellular respiration, carbon dioxide and water, is exactly what plants need as the reactants to be able to do photosynthesis. So when you look at the overall scheme of life. These two types of work cells do. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration are going to be complementary to each other, meaning that one provides what the other one needs in order to happen. There's a balance in life. Some people call it a delicate balance. Others say it's a little harder. For me, it's just amazing how life can continue through these interdependent processes like photosynthesis and cell respiration. So there we have one example of an exergonic reaction. Another is going to be a type of reaction we've seen before, hydrolysis. Yeah, the breaking of bonds that would take a polymer into the components, which would be the monomers. Those reactions are going to end up releasing energy, and also digestion is going to be an example of an exergonic reaction. Remember when we talked about work and we said that when cells are working, there's going to be a release of energy in the form of heat. Well, something interesting happens when a person eats, and the body temperature is actually going to be increasing slightly. There's a slight increase in temperature after a person eats and the process of digestion takes place. And you may not be surprised to hear this, but when a person has been a long time outside in cold conditions and they develop hypothermia, one of the things that we'll do for that person immediately after maybe providing some warm clothing is that we'll give them something to eat. And that food, yes, not only because the person may be hungry, but because the digestion of the food molecules is going to lead to a release of heat. Heat is one of the outcomes of entropy, the increase in the disorder after reactions are taking place. I am going to end here with this brief presentation, and there will be others that are going to be telling you more about energy, work, and the activities of cells.